Now, more than 1.2 million additional households countrywide have been connected to electricity. Makueni, of course, being part of that package. Honorable Speaker, during the financial years 2023, 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25, the government has been able to allocate some Kenya shillings 2.03 billion for Makueni County under the last mile electricity projects, targeting some 18,320 households. A total cost of Kenya shillings 882 million, 581, 888 has been committed through REREC for implementation of some 139 projects. The list of these projects, Honorable Speaker, is provided under Annex 1, showing both the approved budgets and their current implementation status. There was a further 4 projects whose survey and design phases were completed and had been earmarked for implementation, but owing to resource constraints, could not be implemented as scheduled and were therefore deferred to the financial year 25-26. Honorable Speaker, Annexes 2, 3, 4, and 5 provide the details of the projects that have been implemented and those that are planned in Makueni County, including their constituencies and design status. Part B, the government of Kenya, as I've said, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, continues to implement various programs aimed at accelerating electricity access in counties where connectivity remains low, including Makueni County. To address funding constraints and expand rural electrification coverage, the government is pursuing additional financing from development partners to scale up ongoing initiatives under the last mile connectivity project and other complementary programs. In particular, the African Development Bank financed last mile connectivity project phase 3, which is currently under procurement, targets some 35 counties across the country, focusing on areas with low connection levels. Under this program, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County has been allocated approximately Kenya shillings 185 million, which will facilitate the construction of new low voltage distribution networks and transformer installations to connect hundreds of households. The ministry is also working closely with the Kenya Power and REREC to optimize available resources, rationalize existing infrastructure, and implement grid intensification and extension works to ensure equitable access across all counties. Honorable Speaker, the table that follows, of course, shows the summary of the last mile connectivity projects in Makueni County, with the amounts and the respective number of households. Part C, Honorable Speaker. The government of Kenya, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, in collaboration with development partners such as the World Bank, is implementing several initiatives to promote the adoption of solar and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents in arid and semi-arid regions. One of the flagship programs under this effort, Honorable Speaker, is the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project, famously referred to as COSAP, which seeks to expand access to modern energy services in areas that are not viable for grid extension in the short term at a cost of US $150 million. The project targets 14 undeserved counties, as I've said, And these counties are Garissa, Isiolo, Kilifi, Kwale, Lamu, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu, Tana River, Turkana, Wajir, West Pokot, Narok, and Taita Taveta. The objective of COSAP is to provide renewable energy access to approximately 37,107 households and 343 public facilities, including schools, health centers, and administrative offices, through solar mini-grids, standalone solar systems, and clean cooking solutions. Although, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County is not among the 14 counties targeted under the initial COSAP phase, the government continues to explore the expansion of similar off-grid renewable energy interventions to other counties with low access levels. In parallel, REREC is also implementing standalone solar systems and mini-grid projects across non-grid areas, complementing national electrification efforts. These initiatives collectively contribute to the realization of universal electricity access by the year 2030, as outlined in the Kenya National Electrification Strategy. Part D, Honorable Speaker, the aim of the ministry is to diversify the country's energy mix to ensure that we meet the rising demand for electricity. The current energy mix, Honorable Speaker, is as contained in the table that follows. I note, Honorable Speaker, that there are future possibilities based on the available information to tap into available renewable energy resources, in particular solar and wind, which I note is available in Makueni and various other areas in the country. And the ministry is in the process of exploiting the same. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the ministry is transitioning to renewable energy auctions that will encourage the private sector to invest more into solar and wind resources and sell their power at competitive prices. These initiatives will ensure that we harness more power from solar and wind and diversify our energy mix. Honorable Speaker, let me hasten to add that finally the National Assembly, which is part of this parliament, has lifted the moratorium that was imposed by the same House some time back. And therefore, as a ministry and our respective implementing agency, that is Kenya Power, we are now more than free to engage in negotiations with the prospective independent power producers. This will go a long way in addressing the shortfall and indeed to attract more investments locally and foreign. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Manzo, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for the effort he has made, and he has clearly indicated that Makueni County doesn't have a budget on part of the solar powering. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the President, while in Qatar, talked about power rationing, and I believe this was with the advice of the Cabinet Secretary. Could he highlight, and when this power rationing happens, when will the people of Makueni be in a blackout so that we can plan ourselves much earlier, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS, just wait for a couple of questions, then you can respond to them at once. The Senator for Nairobi City County, Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, as you know, I am a member of the Energy Committee of this House. This morning, we woke up to news that Kenya Power owes 30 billion Kenya shillings out of this same program of rural electrification because the government is pushing power to people who cannot actually sustain that power in terms of paying back the power bills. We see it as a photo obsession for the CS of Energy to go into some hut. You can see the economic situation of that house, Honorable Speaker, when the CS is going to switch on that light. Now, my question is this, and Speaker, in fact, the National Assembly, our sister committee in the National Assembly, is now recommending that in order for Kenya Power to pay back that 30 billion shillings, those of us, again, the working middle class in this country, who can afford to pay, the electricity cost to be raised from July of 2026 in order to raise this 30 billion Kenya shillings to repay this debt. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, and Honorable Speaker, we were in Kilifi County, where the Speaker comes from. The other complaint, and I'm sure you have interacted with this issue, Honorable Speaker, is that you find somebody has been connected to power, yes, but the power is so unreliable and so low voltage, it cannot power a portion mill for that hustler down there to be able to actually run the business. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, as you push this power to these people, what plans have you as a government put in place to ensure that the people you are connecting that power to, after they get the infrastructure, are in an economic situation where they can actually pay their power bills? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Abbas Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First and foremost, I want to thank the Minister for coming and the good work they're doing. However, I know every part of this country, people are crying for power. Honorable Minister, I think I want to talk about my county. Wajir County has been experiencing power blackout and power inefficiency supply for many, many years. Subsequently, subsequent governments have always been saying that will be connected to the grid, national grid, that there is 5 megawatts of hybrid solar system. But of course, up to now, we experience same problems. That you have, your ministry has leased, or power has leased, Kenya Power has leased some generators from a private company called Income. But those guys are very inefficient. Income is not actually giving sufficient supply to Wajir. Wajir is experiencing actual blackout every day, one day out, day in. And therefore, I want to ask a question is that when are you going to connect, when will the Kenya Power, the ministry connect to Wajir, to the national grid, because Wajir is growing, and then there's so many off-grid lines that have been taken from the town, the main town, and then being taken to the rural areas. That's okay, that's in order. But of course, the power is not enough. So, because of that many connections, the main town...
Senator Abbas,
yes, sir.
Just pause your question.
Okay. The problem is we're now experiencing, terrible inefficient, the power blackouts. When are we going to have the promised 5 megawatts hybrid system, hybrid power from solars? And what are you going to do, the government doing, the ministry doing, to connect Wajir to the national grid? Thank you, Banawziri.
Now, honorable senators, let us avoid speeches. Let's go direct to the question. Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a question. Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate, and thank you for your response on Makueni. My question is whether the ministry has a program around the national government partnership with county governments to ensure operationalization of the industrial parks. How much has the ministry supported the provision of energy resources around the county industrial parks, and how equitable is that process?
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cabinet Secretary, in page 2 of your response, you talked about the last mile connectivity project phase 2. Could you tell this House how much that financing is, and also name the 32 counties which are supposed to benefit? Thank you.
Senator Chiranke?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is, in Nandi, we normally have regular blackouts that is affecting our business as farmers, especially preservation of milk, among other produce and products. What strategy does the ministry have to ensure, as they do last mile electricity to rural homes, have in place to prevent regular blackouts that is affecting the ease of doing business? And in addition, because it's one question, how much has been allocated to Nandi County to ensure in this financial year for rural electrification to many areas in Nandi County? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Consolata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity. Bwana CS, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is based on what mechanisms of sustainability have you put in place to maintain and sustain these gadgets? Because you find that even down at the grassroots where I come from, Bungoma County, most mama mbogas are suffering because of regular power outages. Thank you.
Senator Mandago.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just want to ask the Cabinet Secretary, what is he doing to ensure that the cost of the projects they are procuring, particularly in Kentraco, are the actual market costs and not inflated costs? And what are you going to do to resolve the matter that has been hanging around between the court and Kenya Power about the meters that is affecting the connections of rural projects? What are you going to do to address the conflict of interest in those who are involved in that matter? Thank you very much.
Now, Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond. You have 5 minutes to do so. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, as I had said earlier on, Honorable Speaker, we continue to support initiatives to generate more power, especially from the renewable energy sources. That is, of course, including solar and wind power. And it must also be pointed out, Honorable Speaker, that investment in power generation is invariably by the private sector. Yeah, and therefore, the private sector, upon its evaluation and based on clear feasibility study, then makes a decision with the support of the government to implement these projects. And therefore, Makueni County is definitely a candidate for such projects in the fullness of time. Honorable Speaker, the 30 or so billion shillings owed to Kenya Power is not on account of non-payment of bills. This is basically money that is owed to Kenya Power by REREC for the purpose of for maintenance of lines. And it's something which we are dealing with internally as a sector, Honorable Speaker, and the ministry. And Honorable Speaker, it is not true that the households that we connect to electricity, that majority of them fail to pay bills. We don't have that evidence, Honorable Speaker. Many a time when we go out there to commission and or launch these projects, it is really as a way of rallying the public and sensitizing them on what the government is doing for them insofar as extending electricity is concerned. And if there's any default in electricity bill payment, it can only be as a matter of, it can only be out of individual cases where somebody, of course, can fail to pay bills for one reason or the other, not because of the fact that we are extending these services to those who are unable to. Honorable Speaker, plans for consistent, reliable, and uninterrupted supply of electricity. It is important to point out that we are not just implementing these last mile connectivity projects or programs in isolation. we are looking at this in a holistic manner. As I mentioned, starts with generation, which thankfully we are now able to progress as a result of the lifting of the moratorium. But after we generate, we are also concurrently dealing with the issue of infrastructure for both transmission and distribution. And we've invested heavily as government and also with support of partners. Yes, through REREC, through Kenya Power, and through KETRACO. And of course, finally, Honorable Speaker, is the last mile. And therefore, you must look at all this in totality. And all these contribute eventually to a supply which is reliable, consistent, uninterrupted, and more importantly, cost-effective. Honorable Speaker, Wajir County, we have been in touch with the leadership of Wajir County and working very closely with them. We know there have been challenges, especially Wajir Town, as a result of a breakdown in one or two generators that supply that town. I have personally, we've been in touch with the Governor Ahmed Abdullahi and my good friend, the Honorable Member for Wajir East, Honorable Daudi. And we have worked very closely, and I'm happy to report that the restoration of power to normalcy in Wajir town and environs is almost complete. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we have got in plans a robust and what I would say transformative project that is going to ensure that we have got a hybrid system in Wajir town, okay? A hybrid system, Honorable Speaker, that will supply some 6 megawatts of electricity to Wajir town and environs, which is comprising of a solar PV and a battery storage system, to the tune of almost 2.8 billion shillings. Almost 2.8 billion shillings. This is a project that we are keen as a ministry to implement successfully, and we are hopeful that come sometime November, December next year, this project will be complete and commissioned. And this is going to address in totality and with finality the issue of power in Wajir town and environs, and indeed, many parts of Wajir County. I must thank the leadership of Wajir County for working very closely with us as a ministry. Honorable Speaker, as a ministry and through our relevant agencies, we continue to support county governments on a case-by-case basis. These county industrial parks, you know, there are different stages of implementation or development. And therefore, if and when they get completed, we come in very, very fast and support them through Kenya Power. We intend to continue in that trajectory. Honorable Speaker, the AFDB funding, phase 3, okay, that we are just about to implement in some 35 counties, is going to cost some 12 billion shillings. And this project is going to create a very, very big positive impact in terms of our electrification coverage. Honorable Speaker, blackouts in Nandi County must be looked at in the context of the national outlook. Honorable Speaker, I'm very happy to report, and this is something which is evident, that for some time now, we have almost reduced to 0 cases of national blackouts. I'm sure honorable members and honorable Speaker, and members will agree with me that it's long since we had an episode of national blackout. But for the localized blackouts, if and when they occur, we have put in place elaborate systems and mechanisms to ensure that the response time is as short as possible, and that electricity is restored the soonest possible once these blackouts occur. But these localized blackouts, Honorable Speaker, can be attributed to very many factors, but chief of which is the vegetative growth, the trees that sprout and grow along the way leaves. We have worked closely with Kenya Power, and in the past few months, a lot of efforts have been put in terms of cutting down these trees, and this has reduced significantly the number of blackouts. And where the localized blackout is as a result of constraint in the supply, of course, I've said we are implementing a very comprehensive project to ensure that we have got adequate supply in the grid going forward. And this, of course, deals with the issue of Bungoma County and many other places. Honorable Speaker, the question by Honorable Senator Mandago, of course, it's not specific in terms of the cost of procurement by Traco, but I must report to the House, Honorable Speaker, that as a ministry and working closely with our entities, we want to ensure and strive to ensure that there is cost, there's value in every procurement project, Honorable Speaker. There is no problem so far on the matter of meters procurement by Kenya Power. Any small hitches that were there have been resolved, and Kenya Power is on course to have these meters in stores for use by Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Nandi County, of course, has been allocated.
You've responded to Nandi County.
That's been allocated 1.349 billion shillings, which is under implementation. And this is going to connect some 19,000 households, additional, Honorable Speaker, in Nandi County. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will now move to question number 123 by Senator for Tharaka Nithi County, the Honorable Mwenda Gataya. Now, this question will take us to 11:14. Honorable Senator, you may proceed to ask your question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I would request to know from the Honorable Waziri what specific measures is the government taking to address the frequent power outages affecting Tharaka University in Tharaka Nithi County and its environs. But to Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the Ministry's long-term plan to improve power supply infrastructure and ensure progressive realization of universal electricity connectivity in the specified area, as well as across Tharaka Nithi County, and indicate the projected timeline for its implementation? Thank you.
Honorable CS, you may now respond.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I proceed to answer question 123. And I'm also, Speaker, from the outset happy to report that I have had a chance to visit Tharaka Nithi County. Specifically in July, I was in Tharaka constituency and did extensive tour to inspect the ongoing works in so far as electrification